They say silence is a woman's loudest cry. But sometimes silence isn't sadness, it's strategy. When Victoria Ashford saw her husband holding another woman's baby in the park, she didn't scream. She didn't make a scene. She simply turned around, walked back to her car, and made one phone call that would change the history of Wall Street. Her husband thought he was the king of the empire, but he forgot who built the throne. This is the story of betrayal that cost a fortune and a revenge served ice cold. You might want to sit down for this one. The rain in Boston had a way of washing away the grit of the city, leaving the streets slick and reflecting the neon hum of the coffee shops. But it could never wash away the truth. Victoria Ashford adjusted the collar of her beige trench coat, pulling it tighter against the unseasonable chill of early October. She wasn't supposed to be here at the edge of Riverside Gardens on a Tuesday afternoon. She was supposed to be at a charity gala planning committee for the Boston Art Museum. But a sudden cancellation had left her with 2 hours of empty time, a rarity in her regimented life. She had decided to take a walk. It was a simple, innocent decision. Victoria was 42, though she looked 10 years younger, possessing a timeless, almost severe beauty that she had behind oversized glasses and modest clothing. She was known in social circles as Marcus Ashford's wife. It was a title she wore like a heavy piece of jewelry, expensive, enviable to some, but ultimately weighing her down. Marcus was the CEO of Summit Ventures, a logistics and tech shipping giant valued at over $4 billion. He was the face on the cover of Forbes, the man who charmed investors and bullied competitors. Victoria was just a woman who organized his dinner parties and ensured his ties matched his suits. Or so the world thought. As she walked along the winding path lined with wet maple trees, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus, landed in Atlanta, heading straight to the merger meeting. Don't wait up. Love M. Victoria smiled faintly, a reflex of habit. She typed back, good luck. You'll crush it. She slid the phone into her pocket and looked up. The park was mostly empty, save for a few joggers and a couple near the duck pond. Victoria's eyes drifted over them casually, then snapped back. She froze. The air left her lungs as if she'd been punched in the solar plexus. 50 yards away, sitting on a wrought iron bench in the shelter of an old oak tree, was a man. He was wearing a navy cashmere sweater Victoria had bought him for Christmas and dark denim jeans. He wasn't in a suit. He wasn't in a meeting. And he certainly wasn't in Atlanta. It was Marcus. But it wasn't just his presence that froze the blood in her veins. It was what he was doing. Marcus, a man who had told Victoria for 15 years that he wasn't ready for children, that his career was too demanding for a family, was holding a baby. He was cradling the infant with tenderness Victoria had never seen, rocking it gently against his chest. Sitting next to him, laughing and wiping a smudge off his cheek, was a woman. She was young, perhaps 25, blonde, vibrant, and undeniably beautiful. Victoria recognized her instantly. Amber Chun, the new junior VP of marketing at Summit Ventures, the woman Marcus had hired 6 months ago because she had fresh ideas. Victoria didn't move. She felt a strange dissociation, as if she were watching a movie of her own life. She watched Amber lean in and kiss Marcus. Not a quick peck, but a deep, lingering kiss of familiarity. Marcus smiled against her lips, then looked down at the baby, cooing something that made Amber giggle. The betrayal wasn't a sharp knife. It was a dull, heavy stone crushing her chest. 15 years. 15 years of building him up. 15 years of editing his speeches, correcting his strategies late at night while he slept, and letting him take the credit. 15 years of suppressing her own desire for a child because he needed to focus on the firm. She took a step forward, her instinct screaming at her to march over there, to scream, to throw her phone at his head. She wanted the man to know how long. She wanted to know if the baby was his. Looking at the dark tuft of hair on the infant's head, she already knew the answer. Marcus was a man who respected only one thing, leverage. And right now, he didn't know she was watching. That was her leverage. Victoria took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of wet earth and impending ruin. She reached into her purse, her hand steadying as she bypassed her phone, and pulled out a small high-resolution digital camera she carried for her architectural photography hobby. Click. Marcus kissing Amber. Click. Marcus holding the baby up to the sky. Click. The three of them. A perfect secret family portrait. She took 20 photos. Clear, undeniable, devastating. Then Victoria lowered the camera. She didn't cry. The tears would come later. She knew. In the safety of her walk-in closet with a bottle of wine. But right now she was not a wife. She was a shareholder. She turned around. Her heels made no sound on the damp pavement as she walked away from the husband she had loved and the life that had been a lie. She reached her silver Aston Martin, got in, and locked the doors. The silence inside the car was deafening. She stared at the rain beating on the windshield. "Okay," she whispered, her voice cracking just once. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in 5 years. It rang twice. "Lawrence Mitchell," a gravelly voice answered. "Lawrence," Victoria said, her voice turning to steel. "It's Victoria Sterling." There was a pause on the other end. She hadn't used her maiden name since the wedding day. Lawrence Mitchell, the most ruthless corporate litigator in New York, knew exactly what that meant. "Victoria," Lawrence said, his tone shifting from professional to alert. "It's been a long time. Is everything all right?" "No," Victoria said, starting the engine. "Marcus is in breach of the moral turpitude clause, though he doesn't know it yet. And I need you to pull the file on the 98 Incorporation Trust." "The 98 Trust?" Lawrence sounded stunned. "Victoria, that's the nuclear option. If we open that file, Summit Ventures ceases to exist as he knows it." Victoria looked in the rear-view mirror toward the park, though she couldn't see them anymore. "He's not in Atlanta, Lawrence. He's in Riverside Gardens with Amberchen and a child that looks exactly like him." "Oh, hell," Lawrence breathed. "I want everything prepared," Victoria said, pulling out into traffic. "I'm going to play the grieving wife for a little while longer, but I want the transfer papers ready for the board meeting on the 15th. "Victoria, are you sure? Once we play this card, there is no going back. He will be ruined." Victoria's eyes narrowed as she merged onto the highway. "He ruined us first, Lawrence. I'm just balancing the ledger." The house was a sprawling modern masterpiece of glass and steel overlooking Boston Harbor, a testament to the success of Summit Ventures. Victoria had designed herself, working with the architects to ensure every line was perfect, every view maximized. Marcus loved the house because it impressed his clients. He loved the wine cellar because it held $50,000 bottles. He loved Victoria because she fit the aesthetic. Victoria sat at the long mahogany dining table, a single place setting before her. It was 8 p.m. The front door opened. "V, I'm home." Marcus's voice boomed to the hallway, carrying that forced joviality of a man who had successfully juggled 2 lives for the day. Victoria took a sip of water. In the dining room, "Darling." Marcus strode in, dropping a leather overnight bag on the floor. He looked tired but energized, the adrenaline of the secret lover. He walked over and kissed the top of Victoria's head. He smelled of rain and expensive cologne, but underneath, faintly, was a scent of baby powder. "God, what a trip," Marcus said, loosening his tie. "Atlanta was a nightmare. The United Logistics merger is pushing back. I was in the boardroom for 12 hours straight. My back is killing me." Victoria cut a piece of her grilled salmon. 12 hours. That sounds grueling. "Did you manage to eat?" "Barely." Marcus lied effortlessly. "Just some stale sandwiches. I missed your cooking." He sat down opposite her, pouring himself a glass of the Pinot Noir she had opened. "How was your day?" "Oh, you know," Victoria said, looking him directly in the eyes. "Predictable. Boring committee stuff. I took a walk in the afternoon. The fresh air clears the head." Marcus didn't flinch. "Good. You need to relax more. V, you worry too much." He took a long drink of wine. "By the way, Amber, the new VP, she sent over some projected numbers for the Asian expansion. I might need to spend a few late nights at the office this week to review them with her. She's very thorough." "I'm sure she is," Victoria said. "She seems very dedicated to the growth of the company." "Exactly," Marcus said, missing the double meaning entirely. "She's got a bright future." Maybe even partnership track one day. Victoria set her fork down. The anger was there, boiling like magma, but she kept it contained. She needed him to feel safe. She needed him to feel arrogant. "Marcus," she said softly, "do you remember when we started the company in that tiny garage in Newton?" Marcus laughed. "Of course. We were eating instant noodles." "And do you remember where the seed money came from?" Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Your inheritance?" Yes. A few $100,000. A drop in the bucket. Compared to what I've turned it into. I took that money and built an empire." "We built it," she corrected him gently. Sure, Marcus said, checking his watch. "We built it, but let's be honest, V. You're the heart of the home. I'm the brain of the business. That's how it works. That's why we're a good team." He stood up. "I'm going to shower. I smell like Hartsfield Airport." Victoria watched him leave. He didn't smell like the airport. He smelled like betrayal. Once the shower started running upstairs, Victoria moved. She went into Marcus's home office. She didn't need to hack his computer. She knew his passwords. He used variations of his own name and birth year. Marcus 1980. Narcissist to the core. She logged in and went straight to his private emails. She didn't look for love letters. She had the photos for that. She looked for financials. She found a folder labeled Project Nest Egg. Inside were bank transfers. Massive ones. He was siphoning money from the joint accounts and moving them into an offshore holding company in the Cayman Islands. The beneficiary, AC Holdings. Amber Chun. He wasn't just cheating on her. He was preparing to leave her. He was draining their liquid assets so that when he filed for divorce on the grounds of irreconcilable differences, the marital pot would be significantly lighter. Victoria clicked on a document drafted by his personal lawyer, not the company counsel. It was a draft separation agreement. Wife to receive the marital home and a monthly stipend of $10,000 for 5 years. Wife waives all rights to Summit Ventures shares in exchange for lump sum payment of $2 million. $2 million. The company was worth $4 billion. He was planning to give her 0.05% of the value and kick her to the curb. Victoria printed the document. Then she deleted the print log. She returned to the dining room just as Marcus came downstairs fresh from his shower, wearing a robe. "Feeling better?" she asked. "Much," he said. "Hey, V, I was thinking. The shareholders' gala is coming up on the 15th. Yes. I think maybe you should sit this one out." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I've never missed a gala." "I know," Marcus said, putting on a face of mock concern. "But you've been looking tired lately, and honestly, it's going to be boring. Just a lot of tech talk. Amber and the team can handle the hosting duties. You should take a spa weekend. Go to Martha's Vineyard. You deserve it." He wanted her gone. He wanted to introduce Amber as his right hand. Maybe even debut her softly to board before dropping the divorce bomb. "Martha's Vineyard sounds lovely," Victoria said slowly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I am tired." "Great." Marcus beamed, thinking he had manipulated her perfectly. "I'll have my assistant book it for you." "Don't bother," Victoria said, standing up and walking toward him. She placed a hand on his cheek. He flinched slightly, then relaxed. "I'll handle the arrangements. I want everything to be perfect." "You're the best, V," he said. "I know," she whispered. That night, Victoria lay awake in bed next to her sleeping husband. She listened to his breathing, deep and untroubled. He was dreaming of his new life, his young mistress, his son, and his billions. She rolled over and picked up her iPad, opening the secure encrypted messaging app she used to communicate with Lawrence. Message from Lawrence. "I pulled the 98 incorporation papers. It's ironclad, Victoria. But are you aware of the Class A clause?" Victoria typed back. "I wrote the Class A clause, Lawrence. I know exactly what it says." Lawrence. "If you trigger this, you not only take the company, you strip him of his voting rights entirely. He won't even be able to enter the building without a visitor pass." Victoria looked at Marcus one last time. "Victoria, proceed. Prepare the packet for the gala. I'm not going to Martha's Vineyard. I'm going to introduce myself to the board." The war had begun, and Marcus Ashford had brought a knife to a nuclear fight. The headquarters of Summit Ventures was a glass monolith piercing the downtown Boston skyline, a phallic symbol of Marcus Ashford's ego. The 44th floor was dedicated to executive leadership, a realm of hushed corridors, plush carpeting, and the scent of espresso and ambition. Amber Chin sat in her new corner office, an office that until 3 weeks ago had belonged to the CFO, a man with 30 years of experience who had been quietly retired to make room for fresh blood. Amber swiveled in her ergonomic leather chair, gazing out at the Custom House tower. She ran a manicured hand over her stomach. She wasn't pregnant again, not yet, but the son she had hidden away in a luxury condo in Cambridge was her golden ticket. She picked up her phone and dialed the nanny. "Is Owen sleeping?" Amber asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Yes, Miss Chun. He went down just fine," the nanny replied. "Good. Remember, if anyone asks, anyone at all, you are my cousin watching my nephew. I can't stress that enough." "I understand." Amber hung up. She felt a thrill of adrenaline. Being the mistress was exciting, but being the future Mrs. Ashford was a goal. Marcus had promised. He had told her that Victoria was a deadweight, a frigid socialite who didn't understand the modern complexities of tech logistics. He said their marriage was a shell, and Amber believed him because she wanted to. She turned her attention to the large monitor on her desk, the seating chart for the shareholders' gala. Marcus had given her the authority to arrange the seating, a task usually reserved for his wife. It was a test and a passing of the torch. Amber smirked as she dragged Victoria's digital avatar from the head table to table 14, a respectable but clearly peripheral table near the kitchen doors, populated by mid-level regional managers. Then she placed herself at the head table, right next to Marcus. "Perfect," she murmured. "It's a bold choice," a voice said from the doorway. "But the lighting is terrible at table 14. Amber spun around, her heart hammering against her ribs. Victoria Ashford was standing in the doorway. She wasn't wearing the frantic, suspicious look of a jealous wife. She was wearing a cream-colored Armani suit that cost more than Amber's car, and she looked utterly serene. "Mrs. Ashford," Amber stammered, standing up quickly. She tried to block the screen with her body, but it was too late. I wasn't expecting you. Marcus said you were packing from Martha's Vineyard." "I am." Victoria lied smoothly, stepping into the office. She looked around, her eyes landing on a gaudy abstract painting Amber had hung on the wall. Victoria's lip curled slightly, just a millimeter. "I just stopped by to drop off Marcus's tuxedo. He forgot it at the dry cleaners." Victoria walked past Amber and looked at the screen. Amber held her breath. She expected screaming. She expected a scene. Instead, Victoria laughed softly. "Oh, honey," Victoria said, shaking her head. "You can't put me at table 14. I was just drafting," Amber began, her face flushing crimson. "Because," Victoria interrupted, her voice kind and helpful, "Harrison Whitmore, the chairman of the board, is hard of hearing in his left ear. If you sit next to Marcus at the head table, you'll be on Harrison's bad side. He'll ignore you all night. And you don't want to be ignored, do you?" Amber blinked, confused. "I know." "Here," Victoria said, reaching over. Her perfume, something distinct like jasmine and cold steel, wafted over Amber. Victoria grabbed the mouse. "Let's keep me at table 14. I prefer the quiet. And honestly, the kitchen staff are the most interesting people in the room. But you," Victoria dragged Amber's icon to the right side of Marcus. "You sit here, right between Marcus and the congressman. That's the power seat. If you're going to represent the company's fresh future, you need to be visible." Amber was stunned. Was Victoria helping her? Was she truly this oblivious? Or was she so checked out of the marriage that she simply didn't care? "Thank you, Mrs. Ashford," Amber said, regaining her composure, a smirk tug at the corner of her mouth. "I just want to make sure the evening is a success for Marcus." "Of course," Victoria said, turning to leave. "We all want what's best for Marcus. He's a very demanding man. It takes a village, doesn't it?" She paused at the door. "Oh, and Amber, that shade of blue you're planning to wear, the cerulean one, Amber froze. She hadn't told anyone about her dress. How did you know? Marcus put the charge on the black Amex, Victoria said with a breezy smile. It's a lovely color, but be careful with the wine. Silk stains so easily. Victoria walked out, her heels clicking rhythmically down the hall. As soon as she was in the elevator, the smile vanished from Victoria's face. She pulled out her phone. She's worse than I thought, Victoria said into the receiver. She's not just ambitious. She's incompetent. She was going to seat the chairman next to the speakers. He would have left in an hour. And you fixed it? Lawrence's voice crackled in her ear. I put her next to Congressman Bradley, Victoria said. Bradley? Lawrence chuckled darkly. The man is currently under investigation for that procurement scandal. The press will be swarming him. Exactly, Victoria said as the elevator doors opened to lobby. When the flashbulbs go off, I want Amber right in the blast zone. I want her face plastered on the front page next to a corrupt politician and my cheating husband. It will make the moral turpitude argument much easier to sell to the shareholders. You're terrifying, Victoria. I'm efficient, Lawrence. Have you found the assets? Yes, and it's worse than we thought. Silas, the forensic accountant, found a shell company in Nevada, Little Owen LLC. Victoria stopped in the middle of the lobby. Little Owen, the baby, Lawrence said. He bought a condo in Cambridge under the LLC. Cash, $2 million. That's company money, Victoria. He siphoned it from the R&D budget and categorized it as external consulting fees. Victoria felt a cold rage tighten her throat. The R&D budget, the Research and Development Fund, was her baby. It was the heart of the company, the fund she had insisted on protecting to ensure they stayed ahead of Amazon and FedEx. He was stealing from the company's future to pay for his past mistakes. He's embezzling, Victoria whispered. It's not just a divorce case anymore, Lawrence said. It's a criminal case. If we expose this, he goes to prison. And the stock price tanks, Lawrence warned. Victoria walked out into the gray Boston afternoon. The stock will recover. The truth is a market correction. Proceed with the filing, but don't serve him yet. I want him to feel like a king for exactly 48 more hours. The night before the gala, the air in the Ashford residence was thick enough to choke on. Marcus was pacing the living room, a tumbler of scotch in his hand, rehearsing his speech. Tonight marks a new era for Summit Ventures, he intoned, gesturing to an imaginary audience. An era of youth vitality and aggressive expansion. Victoria sat on the sofa, folding a silk scarf. She had a suitcase open on the floor. To Marcus, it looked like she was packing from Martha's Vineyard. In reality, the suitcase contained nothing but old towels and pillows to give it weight. Her real clothes, her war paint, were already waiting at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Is aggressive the right word? Victoria asked softly. Maybe strategic? Marcus stopped pacing and glared at her. Aggressive is exactly the word, Victoria. The market is soft. We need to look like predators, not prey. You'd know that if you'd stepped foot in a board meeting in the last decade. The insult landed, but Victoria didn't flinch. He had forgotten. He had genuinely forgotten that the proprietary algorithm that routed their ships, the Summit Logic Matrix, wasn't written by him. It was written by her late at night in 1998, while he was out schmoozing investors who wouldn't give him the time of day. He was the face. She was the code. You're right, darling, she said. You know best. Marcus finished his drink and set the glass down with a heavy clink. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. Before you go Martha's Vineyard, he said, his tone shifting to casual, almost bored, I need you to sign these. Just standard stuff for the refinancing of the warehouse district. Victoria looked at the envelope. This was it. The trap. She took the papers and put on her reading glasses. She scanned them quickly. It was a masterpiece of legal deception. Buried on page 42, in dense paragraph blocks about liability restructuring, was a clause that converted her Class B shares into non-voting Class C shares. If she signed this, she would lose her ability to vote on the board. She would still have the money, but she would lose the power. He was trying to declaw her before he cut her loose. It's a lot of pages, Marcus, she said, feigning fatigue. My eyes are blurring. It's just formalities. Legal nonsense. I've already read it twice. Just sign the back page so I can get it to the lawyers in the morning. He uncapped a Mont Blanc pen and held it out to her. His hand was steady, but a bead of sweat trickled down his temple. Victoria took the pen. She hovered it over the signature line. She looked up at him. Do you love me, Marcus? The question caught him off guard. He blinked. What? Of course. What kind of question is that? It's just 15 years. We've built so much. And we'll build more, he said, pushing the paper slightly toward her. Sign, V. The car for the airport will be here in 20 minutes. Victoria smiled. A sad, final smile. Okay. She pressed the pen to the paper, but she didn't sign Victoria Ashford. She signed Victoria S. Ashford. The S stood for Sterling. But more importantly, she knew something Marcus didn't. The bylaws of Summit Ventures, Article 12, Section 4. Any modification to Class B share structures requires the signature of a witness from the board of directors. Marcus hadn't brought a witness. He thought he could bully her into it in their living room. Without a witness, the document was not only void, it was evidence of fraud. She closed the folder and handed it back to him. Done, she said. Marcus didn't check the signature. He didn't check for the witness line. He was too relieved. He grabbed the folder like a starving man grabbing bread. Great. Excellent. He kissed her cheek, his lips cold. Have a wonderful time on the vineyard. Drink some wine. Relax. Don't check the news. Why would I check the news? She asked innocently. No reason. Just disconnect. You need it. 10 minutes later, Victoria watched from the window of the black town car as her husband, the man she had given her youth, her intelligence, and her heart to, waved goodbye from the porch. As soon as the car turned the corner, the facade dropped. Change of destination. Victoria said to the driver, Ma'am, take me to the Ritz-Carlton, and then I need you to drive to Cambridge. There's a young woman named Amberchun. I need you to deliver a package to her doorstep. Victoria reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside wasn't jewelry. It was a pacifier, a cheap plastic pacifier she had bought at a drugstore. Attached to it was a note. For the little one, bring him to the gala. The family should be together for the big announcement. The driver looked at her in the rear-view mirror, confused. Just do it, Victoria said, leaning back and closing her eyes. She wasn't going to Martha's Vineyard. She was going to war. The morning of the gala, the 15th of October, dawned cold and gray, but inside the grand ballroom of the Copley Grand Hotel, it was a flurry of activity. Marcus was in high spirits. He had the signed documents in his safe. He had amber prepped and ready to dazzle the investors. He had the speech of a lifetime prepared. He believed he had successfully neutralized his wife and was about to soft launch his mistress. At 2 p.m., Lawrence Mitchell met Victoria in her hotel suite. The suite was covered in documents, charts, graphs, financial traces. We have the smoking gun, Lawrence said, placing a red folder on the coffee table. We trace the consulting fees all the way. He didn't just buy the condo. He's been paying Amber a salary of $250,000 a year for a job that didn't exist until 6 months ago. That's corporate malfeasance. It's theft. And the 1998 trust, Victoria asked, standing by the window, looking down at the city, ready to execute. The moment you walk onto that stage, I will file the motion electronically with the Delaware Court of Chancery. By the time you finish your first sentence, he will legally be an employee, not the owner. Lawrence hesitated. Victoria, are you ready for the fallout? This won't stay in the boardroom. This will be on TMZ. It will be everywhere. Victoria turned. She was wearing a dress that was a weapon in itself, a deep blood-red gown that hugged her silhouette, sharp and elegant. It was the color of power. It was the color of retribution. Let them talk, Victoria said. For 15 years, I've been the silent partner. Tonight, I'm going to make some noise. She checked her watch. It's time. Let's go catch a husband. The grand ballroom of the Copley Grand Hotel was a cavern of gold leaf, crystal chandeliers, and the murmuring of 300 of the Northeast's most influential people. The air smelled of roasted duck, expensive perfume, and the specific electric anxiety that accompanies high-stakes networking. Marcus Ashford moved through the crowd like a shark in a reef of tropical fish. He wore a bespoke tuxedo that fit him perfectly. His smile was practiced and dazzling. He shook hands with venture capitalists, clapped rivals on the shoulder with feigned camaraderie, and accepted compliments about the company's Q3 earnings. "Where's the lovely Victoria?" asked Harrison Whitmore, the chairman of the board, an elderly man with eyebrows like wire brushes. Marcus didn't miss a beat. "She's on Martha's Vineyard, Harrison, taking a well-deserved break. She sent her regards, specifically to you. She knows how much you hate these rubber chicken dinners." Harrison chuckled, sipping his scotch. Smart woman. She always did have the best instincts. "Indeed," Marcus said, his eyes scanning the room for Amber. He found her near the ice sculpture. She looked breathtaking in the cerulean silk dress, exactly as he had imagined, but she looked brittle. Her smile was tight, her eyes darting toward the ballroom doors every few seconds. Marcus approached her, keeping a professional distance for the cameras. "You look incredible," he murmured, pretending to admire the ice sculpture. "But you look like you're about to be executed. Relax. The ink is dry on the separation papers. Victoria signed them last night." Amber looked at him, her eyes wide. "She signed? Just like that? She didn't even read them?" Marcus scoffed. "She's checked out, Amber. We've won." Amber didn't relax. She gripped her clutch tighter. "Marcus, I received a package today. A pacifier with a note telling me to bring Owen here." Marcus froze. "What? Who sent it?" "I don't know. There was no name. I thought maybe you sent it as a surprise to introduce him." "Are you insane?" Marcus hissed, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "Why would I bring our illegitimate child to the shareholders' gala before the divorce is public? Did you bring him?" "No." Amber whispered back hurriedly. "Well, not into the room. He's upstairs in Suite 402 with the nanny. I was too scared to leave him in Cambridge." Marcus exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Okay. It's probably just a prank from a former employee. Someone who suspects. Ignore it. Just focus on the congressman. Sit next to him. Laugh at his jokes. We need his vote on the maritime zoning bill." "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed over speakers, "please take your seats. Dinner is served." Marcus guided Amber toward the head table. He felt a surge of triumph. This was it, the changing of the guard. He sat down, adjusting his napkin. To his right sat Amber. To her right sat Congressman Bradley. As Victoria had predicted, the press photographers swarmed. Congressman Bradley was currently the center of a procurement scandal involving military contracts. He was radioactive. And there was Amber Chun, the fresh face of Summit Ventures, beaming right next to him. Flash, flash, flash. Marcus frowned. He realized too late the optical error. It looked like Summit Ventures was aligning itself with political corruption. He tried to lean in to block the shot, but the photographers were relentless. Then the room went silent. It wasn't a gradual quiet. It was a sudden, vacuum-like silence that started at the back of the room and rushed forward like a wave. Marcus looked up. He looked toward the double doors at the entrance of the ballroom. Standing there was Victoria. She wasn't on Martha's Vineyard. She was framed by the golden archway of the entrance, wearing a dress the color of arterial blood. It was structured sharp and devastatingly elegant. Her hair was pulled back in a severe chignon, revealing diamond earrings that caught the light like shrapnel. She didn't look like a wife. She looked like a CEO. Marcus's fork clattered onto his plate. Victoria began to walk. She didn't hurry. She moved with the predatory grace of a panther, stalking a wounded gazelle. She walked straight down the center aisle, her eyes locked on the head table. "I thought you said she was on Martha's Vineyard," Harrison Whitmore whispered to Marcus, his voice audible in the hush. I thought she was—" Marcus stammered. Victoria reached the head table. She stopped directly in front of Marcus. The room held its breath. "Darling," Victoria said, her voice projecting clearly without a microphone. You forgot your speech notes on the counter. I didn't want you to be unprepared. She placed a red folder on the table. It wasn't his speech notes. It was a forensic accounting file Lawrence had given her. Victoria, Marcus said, standing up, his face a mask of forced politeness. What a wonderful surprise. We thought you were wine tasting. I decided I preferred the taste of business tonight, she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. She turned to Amber. Amber was trembling. The cousin's story wouldn't hold up against the force of nature that was Victoria Ashford. Amber, Victoria said smoothly, that color is stunning. But I see you're sitting in my seat. Amber looked at the congressman, then at Marcus. Oh, stay. Victoria waved a hand dismissively. I wouldn't want to separate you from the congressman. I'm sure you have a lot in common. I'll take the podium. I have a few opening remarks before you start. Marcus. Opening remarks? Marcus asked, sweat pricking his collar. That's not on the schedule. I'm the majority shareholder, Marcus, Victoria said, loud enough for the first 3 tables to hear. I am the schedule. She turned and walked up the steps to the stage. The microphone was waiting. Marcus sat back down, his legs feeling like jelly. He looked at the red folder she had placed in front of him. He opened it just an inch. The first page was a photo, a high-resolution photo of him in Riverside Gardens, holding Owen, kissing Amber. The second page was a bank transfer receipt, $2 million. Subject, Cambridge condo. Beneficiary, Little Owen LLC. Marcus slammed the folder shut. He felt the bile rise in his throat. She knew everything. And she was standing at the microphone. Victoria stood behind the podium. She adjusted the microphone stand. She looked out at the sea of faces. Faces she had known for 20 years. Faces of men who had dismissed her as Marcus's wife. Faces of investors who thought she was just a socialite. She gripped the edges of the podium. Good evening, she said. Her voice was calm, melodic, and terrifyingly steady. For those who don't know me, I am Victoria Ashford. Most of you know me as the woman who plans the Christmas parties. But tonight, I'd like to reintroduce myself. She signaled to the AV technician in the back. Lawrence had briefed him 5 minutes ago. The massive projection screen behind her, which was displaying the Summit Ventures logo, flickered. It changed to a scanned document. It was yellowed with age, dated 1998. This, Victoria said, gesturing to the screen, is the original Articles of Incorporation for Summit Ventures. As you can see, there are 2 founders listed, Marcus Ashford and Victoria Sterling. A murmur went through the crowd. For 15 years, Victoria continued, I have allowed my husband to stand in the spotlight. I allowed him to take credit for the logistics algorithms that I wrote. I allowed him to be the face of this company because I believed we were a partnership, a team. She paused. Her eyes found Marcus's. He was pale, staring at her like she was a ghost. But a partnership requires trust, and it requires integrity. 2 things that are currently in short supply at the executive level. The screen changed again. This time, it wasn't a document. It was a spreadsheet, a forensic trace of the company's R&D funds. In the last 6 months, Victoria said, her voice hardening, $3 million has been siphoned from the research and development budget. This money was intended for the Project Horizon Eco-Shipping Initiative. Instead, it was diverted to a shell company in Nevada called Little Owen LLC. The murmurs grew into gasps. Harrison Whitmore put on his glasses and squinted at the screen. $3 million, Victoria repeated. Stolen from the shareholders. Stolen from you. And used to purchase luxury real estate and pay an unauthorized salary to a junior employee. Victoria pointed a finger at the head table. Miss Amberchun. The spotlight swung instantly, hitting Amber. She gasped, shielding her eyes. Beside her, Congressman Bradley physically scooted his chair away, trying to distance himself from the blast radius. This is preposterous, Marcus shouted. Standing up, he was desperate now. She's lying. She's having a breakdown. Cut the mic. Sit down, Marcus, Victoria commanded. Her voice cracked through the speakers like a whip. "I am not finished. You have no authority here." Marcus roared, playing his final card. "You signed the separation agreement. You are a non-voting shareholder." Victoria smiled. It was a smile of a grandmaster checkmating a novice. "The agreement you tried to force me to sign last night?" Victoria asked. "The one you didn't have witnessed? It is void, Marcus." But even if it wasn't, look at the screen. The image changed again. It was a moral turpitude clause of the company bylaws. In the event that the CEO engages in conduct that brings public shame, criminal liability, or financial malfeasance of firm, the Class A shares held in the founder's trust revert immediately to the remaining founder. "You embezzled company funds to support a mistress," Victoria said, the words ringing out clearly. "You committed fraud. You breached the clause." She leaned into Mike. "As of 8:05 p.m. tonight, pursuant to filing my attorney, Lawrence Mitchell, has just lodged with the Chancery Court, your voting rights have been suspended. I am now the sole controlling shareholder of Summit Ventures. I own 90% of the voting stock." The room erupted. People were standing up. Phones were recording. It was chaos. Marcus stood frozen. His empire had evaporated in 3 minutes. But Victoria wasn't done. She had one final twist of the knife. "And regarding the personal reason for your embezzlement," Victoria said, her voice softening deceptively, "I believe in transparency. If we are to clean house, we must air out all the laundry." She looked toward the side entrance near the kitchen. The doors swung open. A woman walked in, the cousin, the nanny. She was pushing a stroller. She looked terrified, but she had been instructed by Lawrence's team that bringing the baby was the only way to avoid being named as an accomplice in the embezzlement suit. She pushed the stroller right up to the head table. The baby, Owen, let out a loud cry, the sound piercing the murmur of the crowd. Victoria looked at Marcus. "You wanted a legacy, Marcus. You have one. He's crying in front of your investors." She stepped back from the podium. "Security," Victoria said calmly to the waiting guards. "Please escort Mr. Ashford and Ms. Chun off the premises. They are no longer employees of this firm. And please call a cab for the child. He is innocent in this." 2 burly security guards stepped forward. Marcus looked at them, then at Victoria. His face was a mask of shock and hatred. "You planned this," he rasped as the guards took his arms. "You planned the whole thing." "No, Marcus," Victoria said, picking up her glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "I just developed the strategy. You executed the plan." She raised her glass to the stunned room. "To the future of Summit Ventures," she said. Marcus was dragged out, shouting obscenities. Amber followed, sobbing, clutching her purse, chasing the nanny and the stroller. The heavy double doors slammed shut behind them. Silence returned to the ballroom. Then, slowly, Harrison Whitmore stood up. He began to clap. It started as a slow, rhythmic applause. Then the woman beside him joined in. Then the table behind them. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet, giving Victoria Ashford a standing ovation. She didn't smile. She didn't bow. She simply took a sip of champagne, feeling the cold bubbles against her tongue. The war was over. The Queen still stood. Epilogue. 6 months had passed since the night of the gala, a night that the Boston business press now referred to simply as the Red Wedding of Wall Street. The rain was falling again, a steady, rhythmic drumming against the windows of the dense downtown correctional facility visitation room. It was a stark contrast to the floor-to-ceiling glass of the Summit Ventures penthouse, but Marcus Ashford had been forced to adjust to lower standards of living. He sat on a metal stool bolted to the floor. The cashmere sweaters were gone, replaced by a drab orange jumpsuit. His hair, once perfectly coiffed, was thinning and gray at the temples. The stress of the indictment, the IRS audit, and the pending trial for grand larceny and corporate embezzlement had aged him a decade and half a year. The heavy steel door buzzed and clicked open. Marcus straightened up, expecting his public defender. Instead, Victoria walked in. She was wearing a white trench coat belted at the waist and holding a black umbrella. She looked radiant. There was a lightness to her step that hadn't been there in years. She didn't sit down. She simply stood on the other side of the plexiglass partition, looking at the man she had once promised to love, honor, and cherish. "You came," Marcus said, his voice raspy. A flicker of hope ignited in his eyes. The desperate hope of a narcissist who believes he can still charm his way out of a grave he dug himself. "I knew you would. You still care, V. I know you do." Victoria placed a thin manila envelope on the counter. "I'm not here to reminisce, Marcus," she said coolly. "I'm here to close the loop." "V, please." Marcus leaned forward, his breath fogging the glass. "You have to stop this. The DA is talking about 10 years. 10 years. I'm a businessman, not a criminal. It was a misunderstanding. I can fix it if you just drop the charges. If you tell them it was an internal loan." "It wasn't a loan," Victoria corrected him. "It was theft. You stole from the company I built. You stole from the future." "I built it, too." Marcus snapped, his temper flaring. "I was the face. I was the one shaking hands. And while you were shaking hands, I was writing the code," Victoria said. "And while you were playing house with your assistant in Cambridge, I was balancing the books you were trying to burn." She tapped the glass with a manicured fingernail. "I'm here to offer you a deal, Marcus. A final deal." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What kind of deal?" "Lawrence has drafted a plea agreement with the district attorney," Victoria explained. "If you plead guilty to 1 count of fraud and agree to a full liquidation of your personal assets to repay the shareholders, I will advocate for a reduced sentence. 2 years in minimum security, plus probation." Marcus scoffed. "And leave me with nothing? I'll be destitute." "You're already destitute, Marcus," Victoria said, her voice devoid of pity. "Your assets are frozen. Your reputation is incinerated. Amber has already turned state's witness against you to avoid jail time for herself. She told them everything about the offshore accounts." The color drained from Marcus's face. "Amber, she flipped?" "She has a son to think of," Victoria said. "She did what she had to do to survive. It's funny. She has better survival instincts than you do." Marcus slumped on the stool. The betrayal of his mistress seemed to hurt him more than the destruction of his marriage. "If I sign," Marcus whispered, "what happens to the company?" "The company is thriving," Victoria said. "We rebranded last week. It's no longer Summit Ventures." "What is it?" "Sterling Logistics," Victoria said. "My name, my code, my company." She turned to guard at the door, signaling she was done. "Wait!" Marcus shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Victoria, what about us?" 15 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" Victoria paused, her hand on the door handle. She looked back at him, her expression softening. Not with love, but with a distant, final closure. "It meant everything to me, Marcus. That's why it had to end this way. Because I loved you enough to build an empire for you, and you respected me so little that you thought you could steal from under my nose." She pushed the door open. "Goodbye, Marcus. Enjoy the silence. You finally have time to think." The coffee shop near Faneuil Hall was bustling. Amberchin sat in the corner, feeding Owen a spoonful of mashed peas. She looked different. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a warm sweater. She looked tired, but grounded. She had avoided prison thanks to her testimony, but her career in the corporate world was over. She was working as a receptionist at a dental clinic now. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. She looked up as a shadow fell over the table. She flinched, expecting a reporter or a process server. It was Lawrence Mitchell. "Mr. Mitchell," Amber said, pulling Owen closer defensively. "I've already given my statement. I have nothing left to say." "I'm not here for statement, Miss Chun," Lawrence said, his voice gruff but not unkind. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick document bound in blue paper. "Victoria asked me to bring you this." Amber stared at the document. "Is she suing me?" "I don't have any money." Marcus took it all. "She's not suing you," Lawrence said. "This is a trust deed." "A trust?" "Victoria established an educational trust for the boy." Lawrence nodded at the baby, who was happily smearing peas on the table. It's irrevocable. It covers his tuition from kindergarten through university. It also includes a modest stipend for his living expenses until he is 18. Amber's mouth fell open. Tears welled up at her eyes, spilling over onto her cheeks. Why? She choked out. Why would she do that? I helped destroy her marriage. I hated her. Victoria operates on a different level, Miss Chun, Lawrence said, adjusting his glasses. She knows the boy is innocent. She didn't want the sins of the father to starve the son. She wants him to have a chance to be a better man than Marcus. Lawrence stood up. The paperwork is already filed. You don't need to do anything. Just raise him well. He turned to leave, but stopped. And Miss Chun, Victoria wanted me to pass on one piece of advice. What? Amber wiped her eyes. She said, next time, check the wife's maiden name before you try to take her throne. The final scene took place on the observation deck of the newly christened Sterling Logistics Tower. The rain had stopped, and the clouds had broken, revealing a brilliant golden sunset over Boston Harbor. Victoria stood at the railing, a glass of vintage champagne in her hand. The air was crisp and clean. Inside the boardroom behind her, the new board of directors was waiting. They were a diverse group, young innovators, seasoned veterans, people chosen for their skill, not their ability to sycophant. Lawrence walked out onto the deck. The vote was unanimous, Victoria, he said. The expansion into green tech is approved. The stock is up 12 points since the opening bell. Victoria smiled, taking a sip of the champagne. It tasted like victory. Thank you, Lawrence. You know, Lawrence said, leaning against the railing beside her, most people would have just gotten a divorce. You orchestrated a coup. I didn't want half, Lawrence, Victoria said, looking out the horizon where her ships, were moving across the water, guided by her code. I wanted what was mine. She set the glass down. Shall we? She asked. After you, madam, so, Lawrence said. Victoria turned her back on the sunset and walked into the boardroom. She didn't look back at the past. She didn't look back at the heartbreak. She walked forward, the heels of her shoes clicking a rhythm of power and precision on the marble floor. She was no longer the shadow behind the throne. She was a light, and the world was finally watching. The end. And that is how Victoria Ashford turned a heartbreaking betrayal into the greatest corporate takeover in history. She proved that while revenge is sweet, success is the only revenge that truly lasts. Marcus lost his freedom. Amber learned the hard way that if they cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. And Victoria? She didn't just walk away. She walked up,